Hello, everyone. This is James McDaniels, and you are listening to the NBA and NASCAR Power Half Hour. I am your host, and we have got another great show on tap for you guys today. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We have the NBA playoffs, the conference finals getting started. We have some NASCAR news. We're just talking about a little All-Star race and a little purse worth about $1 million up at stake. So we'll talk about how that race went. We'll talk about some unfortunately very sad NASCAR news with Dick Trickle. He has committed suicide, so we'll get into that a little bit. The Charlotte Bobcats may be changing their name, and of course, this was a big week for the city of Sacramento and the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento Kings and Seattle saga, whether the Kings were going to move or not, the NBA team that I've been talking about for a ton of weeks now. So it finally came to a conclusion this week. I'll talk all about that. So yeah, guys, we have a lot of stuff to go over in our lineup today, so let's get to it. So I want to start off with the Sacramento Kings, and it was a very big week for the city of Sacramento and the Sacramento Kings organization and the city of Seattle. I mean, lots of things were up at stake. So here's basically how it went down. So by the time that the Board of Governors on Wednesday went and voted on the actual relocation itself, Chris Hansen had upped his offer to $625 million total evaluation for the Sacramento Kings, which is way, way above the NBA record, which was already set with his previous offer that, of $525 million when he started out to buy the Kings in January from the Maloofs. So in terms of the Board of Governors and what their bylaws are, for a relocation for the 30 members of the NBA Relocation Committee, you have to win by a half, so basically a majority of half. So 16 people needed to vote in favor of relocation to make relocation happen. If they did not vote that, then the sale of the team would automatically be voted down, because the whole point of selling the team is to move it. So the sale would also go down if the vote for relocation did not pass based on that rule. And even if it did pass, even though the sale would probably be very, very likely at that point, the sale would have to require 3/4 vote, or 23 out of the 30 owners would have to say yes to the sale of the team. So anyway, the NBA Board of Governors on Wednesday took the relocation vote, and it was, to me, it was a little surprising. I mean, not that much surprising, because I knew Sacramento had a great offer on the table with that $525 million, the new arena, and just everything that they had. So I wasn't like really surprised, but I was just a tiny bit surprised, because of course Seattle's offer was really, really good, and I'll go into details about this here in a minute. But anyway, the vote was 22-8 in favor of keeping the Kings in Sacramento. So 22 said no to relocation, while 8 said yes. So that was the final vote. The sale and the relocation was voted down by the NBA Board of Governors. Within the next 36 hours, the Maloofs, the current owners of the Sacramento Kings, made an agreement with Mayor Kevin Johnson and the group, and the Sacramento Investment Group, led by Vivek Ranadive and Mark Mastrov, to sell the team to them. So what we're being told and what I've heard is that the Maloofs were able to get the offer up a little bit from what Ranadive was offering, which was $525 million as the total evaluation of the team. Multiple sources are saying that what their purchase price was for a total evaluation of $535 million. So basically, Ranadive had to up his offer by about $10 million in total evaluation to get the Maloofs to bite at it. And that's pretty respectable. And $10 million with how rich these guys are is chunk change. So not a really big deal. And you know what? Now this agreement is a signed binding agreement. It is a signed binding agreement. Why I say that is because, and why I emphasize it so much, is because, the last agreement last year with Sacramento and the Maloofs went down because the Maloofs ran out on it, and they could run out on it because it was a non-binding, non-signed agreement. So now this thing is signed according to the mayor, Kevin Johnson, and so now the NBA is expected to approve the sale next week. And again, they have to get 23 yes votes for the sale, but because, this is like really, really the last thing that, they want them loose out. They want this to be over with. So I wouldn't be surprised if the NBA voted 30-0 for the sale. But even if the votes stayed pretty much the same as what they were, if 8 people vote down the sale, or should I say 7, because the Maloofs this time want a sale done. So they were one of the no votes, or you can at least presume that they were one of the no votes for the first fact they wanted that they didn't want to stay in Sacramento, that they wanted relocation. So you consider that that's flipped now, that they want a sale. So then that would be 23-7 if everything stayed exactly the same, other than the Maloofs vote. So thinking that, I think that the sale would go through even if it was like that, because you get the 23 required votes. So I'm not too worried about the NBA Board of Governors not approving the decision. I think it's just simple from there to, keep the team in Sacramento and just finish this all off, finish this whole saga that's been, hurting Sacramento and all the respective cities that tried to grab the team, like Anaheim and now Seattle. Now, I'll say something about Seattle. Now, as a Sacramento Kings fan, I did not want the city of Seattle to take the Sacramento Kings away from Sacramento. But I will say this: Seattle does deserve an expansion team. Now, the NBA recognizes this, and even though they've repeatedly said they do not want to really expand, they did say it could be a serious consideration. All right, it might be. All right, hence my words, might be a consideration come the next TV deal in another few years. So I think that could be a big thing for Seattle. I hope Seattle will get a team. They deserve a team. They have a great fan base. They just had a bad thing happen to them when Clay Bennett just basically sold the team out and moved them into OKC almost overnight. So I hope Seattle does get a team in the next few years, and like I said, they deserve it. But Sacramento, they deserve their team because they worked really, really hard to keep it. They did everything the NBA asked them to do, so it was only right for them, the NBA, to say, no, you should sell to the city of Sacramento because they've done everything that we have requested, and we're kind of the higher authority, and pretty much all that kind of stuff. So, very big win for the city of Sacramento. They've got a rally thing that's going to happen on Thursday, I hear. So, I mean, Ron Adive and Mayor Kevin Johnson, all of them are going to be, together publicly for, the first big public thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cesar Chavez Plaza in Sacramento is absolutely packed with Kings fans. It's going to be absolutely amazing. I'm hearing so many stories of people, buying season tickets now for the Kings and everything. Now they've got new ownership. It's a new beginning for Sacramento. It's just like the start of a new era in the Sacramento Kings world. They got new owners and all that. Now, I did talk with Cameron Sadeghi on the Cameron Sadeghi show, or the Hardwood with Cameron Sadeghi to be exact. In fact, I think I talked to him actually yesterday on his show. I talked about, how important this was for Sacramento, my opinions of the Maloofs, but I didn't really talk about, I didn't really talk about Seattle a lot, so that's why I mentioned him here, is because I think they definitely, deserve a team. They just shouldn't get our team when we worked, so hard to maintain it. So I think it was a great victory for Sacramento. I think with the fact that somebody in Seattle is willing to pay that much money for an NBA team, that it would not surprise me that the next time something comes up, the team's just going to sell right away, because an offer like that for any kind of team, an owner's just going to just jump right out for $625 million for a team. They're going to just bite at that like fish on a fish hook biting bait. I mean, it's that simple. When you put up that much money for an NBA team that's never really ever been seen before, then you're going to have owners that are just going to bite at it. So, Seattle, very promising things coming for you. I hope you get an NBA team in a few years. But right now, Sacramento just made a huge victory, showed that we can come back after all this hardship, and proving, how great our fan base is and how great our leaders are. And, everybody was a part of it. Even the Maloofs were kind of a part of it. But the city council did their part, the mayor did his part, the investors did their part, the fans did their part, the grassroots did their part. You can basically hear anything else in any kind of summary of everything that I've been saying on the Cameron Sadeghi show, where I go into a little bit more detail on some certain things, on like how the support was raised and everything like that. So if you want to hear that, then just go to the episode that's right below this episode, Hardwood with Cameron Sadeghi. I come on at about minute 32. So if you want to hear any more about the Kings and a little bit more in depth, then go see my interview on the Cameron Sadeghi show right below this episode. So let's move on from Sacramento, because there's a lot of other stuff to get to, but I just wanted to get my point out that Sacramento, they did all their work. They have a new deal now at $535 million with the Maloofs. It's signed, so the Maloofs can't walk out on it, and it's just going to be a great new beginning for Sacramento and for Seattle. You're going to get a team one day, I can tell you that. If you're willing to put that much money in the economy that you have, it's really, really strong up there in Seattle. It's huge. It's a big TV market. You are diluted a little bit with the fan base because of the Seahawks and the Marlins, or no, not Marlins, Mariners, excuse me, as the other pro teams in there, while Sacramento has a very strong fan base. Because they're a one-team city like Portland. Portland's a one-team city with the Portland Trail Blazers in basketball, or it's like Green Bay in football. They only have one big sport, and that's football in Green Bay. So, the fan bases in one-team cities are a lot stronger, in my opinion, than ones that can have multiple sports to go to. But again, Seattle, really big. It's really big. The economy's doing really well. The TV market's really big there in Seattle. So I guarantee you guys will get a team if you're willing to put up that much money. So I can't wait to see the Kings in Seattle playing again. But for right now, it's a great time for Sacramento, and I can't wait for at least another 35 years of great Kings basketball here in Sacramento and a brand new arena. That will help revitalize downtown, help with the economy, and just everything, and even bring more entertainment that won't come because of the current state of our current arena in Sleep Train Arena. So with that said, let's move on. Let's go on to another team that is starting kind of a big change, I guess you could say. So basically, you remember the Charlotte Bobcats? They had the name the Charlotte Hornets through 2002, before the Hornets moved to New Orleans, where they kept that name and were the New Orleans Hornets. Now, as you can probably remember from this year, or just pretty much, I think it was this year, that the New Orleans Hornets officially changed their name to the Pelicans. And I could go on a huge, gigantic rant about how bad the Pelican, about how bad and maybe not as awesome of a mascot as a Pelican is to an NBA, team, because you kind of want, like a big, powerful, something awesome, like Chicago has the Bulls, or Sacramento has the Kings, or Dallas has the Mavericks, Houston has the Rockets, Orlando has the Magic. Something cool and something cool, unique, and has some kind of flair and kind of scariness to it, I guess you could say. Pelican, the only kind of scariness they have is that their beast can poke on you if they get really, really mad. But I understand why New Orleans went to the Pelicans, because the Pelican has so much resemblance to Louisiana and New Orleans. Yes, I understand that. I'm just saying the Pelican just doesn't sound, I guess, a tad bit scary, if you know what I mean. Some kind of thing it's like you can fear a little bit. You don't fear Pelicans. You can fear Rockets. You can fear Kings. You can fear Magic. You can fear Mavericks as horses, but you can't really fear Pelicans that much. I could go on a rant about this all day, but I'm not going to, because it's their decision. It's their team. They should have the right to choose their name. If it seriously means that much to them in that state, then by all means, change the name to whatever you'd like. I don't really agree with it, but I understand that if it has a big importance or a big significance on Louisiana and New Orleans, then just go for it. I won't say anything like bad about it if that's in your opinion what really matters. So because if it really matters, that's what matters at the end of the day. But anyway, so now that the New Orleans Hornets have become the Pelicans, that Hornets name is now flying up in the air, and now the Charlotte Bobcats are starting the process to get that Hornets name back in Charlotte. So, NBA Commissioner in waiting Adam Silver told Bobcat season ticket holders in April that any change from the Bobcats to the Hornets would take about it says take 18 months, but I guess give or take, about 18 months. I would just say that. I mean, saying just 18 months exactly is kind of, too spot on. You want to say about 18 months. It doesn't say this on ESPN, but I'll just say about 18 months, even though it says just 18 months. But anyway, I'm getting too carried away with that. So basically Charlotte wants to return their own nickname. If they so do, then that's fine. I don't know if the name change is really going to help that team because the Bobcats, or soon to probably be the Hornets, they haven't been that great of an NBA team pretty much the entire time the franchise has been in, except for maybe I think they've been in the playoffs so a few times, and that's pretty much it. But they haven't really gone farther than that. But I don't know if the name will help them at all. But if they want to do that, just like New Orleans went to the Pelicans, the Bobcats want to go through all the trouble to get their original name back, and to me, that's perfectly fine because your name should not be taken away when you leave a city. If your city likes that name, then I say just all out go for it. Same thing with the Pelicans. If your state really, really like the name and it has importance, then go for it. So I'm not going to get too screwed over it. I'm just saying it's not. I wouldn't have picked it as the best one for Louisiana or in Charlotte. I wouldn't have picked the Hornets at all. Of course, I've never been to Charlotte, so I don't know if they have a lot of Hornets there. But if that's what they want to do, then that's what they should do. If the fans love it, then they should do it too because they love it. So that's my opinion on that. So I'm going to skip over right now to NASCAR. I'm going to skip the playoffs just right now for a moment so we can get going on all the NASCAR stuff here. So we have before I go into the All-Star race with the $1 million and some scrutiny that came under that race, I want to go to a news story in NASCAR. Very, very sad. Like I said earlier, Dick Trickle, the great Dick Trickle, the legend short track racer Dick Trickle, whatever you want to call him, has committed suicide, and the cause of it, or in terms of the cause of why he committed suicide, apparently was some kind of severe pain that he was experiencing, at least according to his brother, according to ESPN. So Dick Trickle was a NASCAR driver, and he was one of those old. He was a very old guy when he entered really NASCAR himself. 1989, he was the Winston Cup at what was the time the Winston Cup Series. He was the Rookie of the Year that year, 1989, and he was 48 years old. I'm not joking on that one. He was 48 years old when he won Rookie of the Year. For crying out loud, when you're 48 and you're talking about NASCAR, you're thinking about, being retired at that point. You usually don't go up to 48 in NASCAR. I mean, there's a few drivers that do it, like Mark Martin right now. He's 54 years old, and he's still racing really, really good. I remember about 5 or 6 years back when Mark Martin said that he was planning to retire in one more season. And you know what? He's just not stopping. And you know what? I really don't want him to stop. He's really good for the sport. He's got a great attitude. He's owned the sport for a very long time, and I'd hate to see him leave NASCAR. I mean, I didn't really want to see him leave when he first announced that he probably was going to retire, and I'm so glad he hasn't. So I hope Mark Martin keeps going on for a very, very long time in the NASCAR world. Now, as for Dick Trickle, like I said, he was age 71, so I don't exactly know what would be causing the pain. I mean, it could have been arthritis. I mean, who knows? But the point is, he was just having so much pain that it just caused him to go to suicide, which is almost hard to believe in some kind of way. But but it was actually called out at 12:02. That's when the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department said the incident occurred was at 12:02 p.m. So basically lunchtime, just afternoon. At Forest Lawn Cemetery off Highway 150. So that is where he committed the suicide. Now as for Trickle's history in NASCAR, Trickle, like I said, he was the Rookie of the Year in 1989 at age 48. But he okay, so the only victory that Trickle actually did in the NASCAR's Premier Series or the Winston Cup or the Sprint Cup or whatever you want to call it, but the point is he only did one victory in the NASCAR Premier Series, and that was a non-points victory in the 1990 Winston Open, which was the preliminary to the All-Star race. And I'm going to get to the All-Star race here in a second. But that was Dick Trickle's only win in the NASCAR series as in the Premier Series. But he was a very good short track racer. In fact, I mean, I hear that guy won over like 1,200 short track events, and in his entire life, he was like the king of short track racing. So in that way, NASCAR lost a great driver. Maybe not because he didn't win pretty much anything at the Premier thing, but his short track history made him one of the best drivers in NASCAR's history in terms of short track driving. Very good, and we lost the legend in that part of the sport. Dick Trickle, dead at age 71 due to suicide due to chronic pain. So very, very sad in the sports world and the racing world to see that. I know the only way I actually kind of know Dick Trickle actually was questions from some of the NASCAR video games that they have about him. I think there was even a question that said, like, who is the oldest guy to ever get a pole or earn a pole in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series or something like that, and the answer was Dick Trickle, and that's how I first came to know about him. Yeah, I didn't know too much about him before this death, but after reading about his death and stuff, it's like it's amazing how much he actually really did in his life and how much racing he did. So, very sad to see him gone, and I mean, hopefully him and Mark Martin can be an inspiration for drivers that want to stay in the sport or get into the sport later at a later age, and the fact that age maybe should not be a factor in your racing. Dick Trickle was retired, by the way. I mean, he wasn't still racing; he was retired from the sport of NASCAR. But anyway, like I said earlier, his only win came in the 1990 preliminary race, or the 1990 Winston Open, which is a preliminary to the All-Star race. So speaking of All-Star race, let's get to the All-Star race, this year's All-Star race in NASCAR 2013. It was a very good race for Jimmy Johnson. And why I say this is because he won. He's now a 4-time winner of the All-Star race, for crying out loud. 4 times. The Charlotte Motor Speedway was actually called Lowe's Motor Speedway for some time, and that, I mean, and he was the driver of the Lowe's car, and he still has Lowe's as sponsor, really big main sponsor. So, I mean, when they say he owns the track, I mean, literally, Jimmy Johnson owns that Charlotte Motor Speedway. And he used to own it when it was like Lowe's Motor Speedway, and he still owns it now as Charlotte Motor Speedway. I mean, he just dominates at the place every single time. It's amazing. Now he didn't dominate pretty much the entire race. There was the other 4 segments were won by the Busch brothers. 2 were won by Kyle Busch, and 2 other segments were won by Kurt Busch. But the final segment's all that matters, and Jimmy Johnson came away with the win on the 10-lap shootout for the win. Now this win for Jimmy Johnson did not come without some scrutiny. There was some math problems that Speed and Fox basically posted during the race, and maybe kind of shuffled up the order a little bit to make it seem like something really had happened wrong. It confused fans basically. What Speed and Fox put out really kind of confused fans. Now, this has to do with, just a simple math mistake. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant about this because this is absolutely unacceptable from a big name motorsports broadcaster like Speed and Fox. All right, so I'm gonna read you the story here from AOL.sportingnews.com, and I'm gonna do it pretty much quote by quote here, full story. So it says, "Quote: Speed had a solid full weekend of Sprint All-Star Race coverage, but a mathematical error created some confusion for race fans watching the telecast Saturday night. The order the drivers entered pit road for the mandatory 4-tire pit stop prior to the final 10-lap dash to the finish was based on average finish of the first 4 segments. Well, Speed posted the wrong order with the wrong averages prior to them coming down to pit road. They didn't even have Jimmy Johnson in the top 10. He was actually 4th, and he came off pit road 2nd. The speed mistake had fans thinking Johnson snookered NASCAR in order to restart 2nd with 10 laps remaining. For some reason, Johnson seems to find a cloud of controversy with his wins. It doesn't help that the 5 Cup titles alone have people rooting against him," end quote. And then he talks about, how people think NASCAR is rigged and stuff, but the point is it really wasn't. So after his quotes, here's some more quotes from the story to actually tell what really should have happened and what was posted. So quote, after the 4 segments, Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch had an average finish of 2.0, with Kurt going down pit road first based on having a better finish in the 4th segment. Casey Kane had an average finish of 4.75, and then Johnson was next at 6.0. Thus, Johnson should have been 4th. The graphic Fox showed had Kyle Busch first with 2.2 average, so that was already wrong. Kurt Busch second with a 3.7 seconds. That's nearly 2 or 3 or 3.7 spot, 3.7 spot, which is almost 2 spots off of what he should have been. And then only 4, and get this, only 4 of the 10 drivers Speed had in the top 10 entering pit road actually had the correct averages. 4, just 4. All right, and this is not what they said. This is now what I'm saying now. The quote ended when I said had the correct averages. But I'm going to go on a little tiny rant right now. Okay, when you're talking about Fox or Speed, these guys are very reliable. All right, these guys have Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip. Let's see, they got a ton of guys. Chris Myers, even Michael Waltrip sometimes. And this is a very, very legitimate network and very trustworthy. And you post information like that's wrong. It's a mathematical problem that should be very easy. You're only talking about 4 segments. I mean, come on. You're adding 4 numbers, and then you're taking the mean of those numbers. And I know what mean is. It's easy. It's the average. You add them all up, divided by how many numbers there are. So if it's, okay, I'm going to use the example again that I used earlier today. All right, if you finish 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 8th, all right, in the first 4 segments. I don't care when you got them, but point is that if you had any of the segments, you finished 2nd in one segment, 3rd in one segment, 6th in another segment, and 8th in another segment. I don't care if they're in order or not of that. The point is, if you finish in those ways, you're going to end up with 19, all right, added together. You divide that by 4, and you're going to get a simple answer, all right? Your average position is going to be 4.75. It is not that difficult to see that. It's a simple math problem. And NASCAR could not get it right, or should I say Speed and Fox should not get it right. And to let alone, I mean, that's bad enough for 1 or maybe even 2 drivers. They got 6 guys wrong. 6 guys wrong. Are you kidding me? 6 guys wrong from a legitimate network, and they can't even make a stinking math problem right. It is very, very, it's very, very bad that Speed and Fox did that. It is absolutely asinine that they got that. That they got that simple math problem wrong. It's absolutely shameful on Fox and Speed's part. I mean, very, very bad. But as regarding to this, I think the announcers kind of realized all of the controversy that was going on, and so basically, here's some of the 2. Mike Joy, as I mentioned earlier, he said this on Twitter. He said, quote, "We have a really good people at Speed, but tonight a mistake was made calculating average finishes. 48 entered pitch in correct position. 4th. Okay. Larry McReynolds, he tweeted something. He said, quote, "To clear everything up on the 48 car, on their average finish to enter pit road. Our graphic was messed up, and he was in top 10. In top 5. Was right. So, simple answer there. Those guys believe they got it right, but the Fox graphic did not show it right. And I really, really like Fox, and I really like Speed a lot better than TNT or maybe even NBC or definitely ESPN. Cannot stand ESPN. But that is absolutely shameful. Absolutely shameful they could get an easy math problem like that wrong. Really, really bad. Now, as for the All-Star race itself, I already talked about that. Jimmy Johnson walks away with the win after the 10-lap dash, and then the other 4 segments were won by two were won by Kurt Busch, and then 2 were won by Kyle Busch. So I talked about that, and Jimmy Johnson, for his efforts and under his scrutiny, walked away with a cool $1 million. So next week's race will be the Coca-Cola 600, the longest race on the NASCAR. Not the longest track on the NASCAR circuit, but the longest race in the NASCAR season. Very, very long race, and it should be entertaining. Johnson, I expect him to dominate like he does always. He's very, very good. And, I mean, he's not a 5-time Cup champion and a 4-time All-Star victory champion, plus, maybe, and then I think he's won at Charlotte the Coca-Cola 600 or some kind of Charlotte event at least once or something. He's probably earned more, but I don't know the exact number, but I know he's won there at least once. So, I mean, Johnson, I expect him to dominate like always. So that's my take on the NASCAR All-Star race. And then next week, of course, we have the very long Coca-Cola 600 at the same racetrack, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Lastly here, I know I'm running out of time. I have the playoffs here. Finally, the conference finals in the NBA. Spurs and Grizzlies. San Antonio absolutely destroying the Grizzlies by 22 points today to take a 1-0 lead in the series. Not even close at all. Tony Parker had nearly a double-double with 20 points and 9 assists on his night for the Spurs. So let's just go in the numbers for both the Spurs and Grizzlies and Heat and Pacers series very quickly. So points per game, and so these are the 2013 team stats. The Spurs average 103 points compared to the Grizzlies 93.4. Rebounding is only off by about 1 rebound, so that ain't too big. Assists per game goes in the advantage of the Spurs. They get about 4 more assists per game than the Grizzlies do. Field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and 3-point percentage all go in favor of the Spurs by only a few percentage points. So really closely net series. The Memphis Grizzlies, they've never won an NBA title. Of course, the Spurs, they've won 4. So I mean, we'll see how that experience benefits them. But I think it's really big for Memphis because as a team that's never been to this far or has never been to the NBA championship, this is a very big first-time experience for the team and the city itself. So I expect with those close numbers, even though we found like a big blowout today with the Spurs beating Grizzlies, it wasn't too surprising because in the 4 games that those two played against each other during the year, all 4 games were won by the home team. So two games were won by Memphis on their home court, and 2 games were won by Spurs on their home court. So it didn't surprise me that the Spurs won on their home court, but if that trend continues, then San Antonio Spurs would win in 7 games. But I definitely don't think that will happen unless the Grizzlies make an upset. If the Grizzlies win, I say they take them in 7 games. Other than that, I think the Spurs can win it. But Memphis, I got faith in them to be an underdog. And as for the Indiana Pacers and Miami Heat are obviously the favorites, but I think the Pacers could put up a really good challenge against them. As for the numbers of both teams, the Heat averaged just under 103 points a game compared to the Pacers just below 95. Rebounding does go to the Pacers by about 7 rebounds per game. The Heat out assist the Pacers by about 3 assists per game, and then the field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and 3-point percentage all go to in favor of the Heat by a few percentage points. So another evenly matched series. Obviously, LeBron James's play, Dwayne Wade's play, Chris Bosh's play, and then all the Pacers players and the way that they were able to take on the Knicks and beat them and just do really well this season. They could really put up a fight with the Heat, but I think the Heat could win this one. But again, just like the Grizzlies, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers win the series because they've got all the makings of a good team, just like Memphis does. But the Spurs and the Heat, they've been in the playoffs before. They know how to do things, and we'll see. We'll just see what happens. We'll see if the Spurs and Heat, their experiences will outlast the experiences which aren't much for the Pacers and the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies and the Pacers can have their underdogs and make it to the NBA Finals. So we'll see what happens. But right now, Pacers and Heat have not started in the series yet. But the Spurs already have a 1-game lead over Memphis Grizzlies, beating them and crushing them by 22 points on their home floor. So that'll do it, you guys, for this edition of the NBA and NASCAR Power Half Hour. I will see you all next week when I have more NBA playoff news, NASCAR news, obviously from the Coca-Cola 600, and just any other odd news that I find. Like always, I'll always get it to you guys. And I'm really excited about this week. Excited about the Kings finally staying here. And until I see you guys again next week, I hope you have a good one. Good night, everybody.